Welcome to Stampscaping 101, or rather the Stampscapes lab. We have here a piece of the Mirri lava holographic cardstock. I think it's called other things. I think wave was another term used for something similar on another site. But extreme contrast in here. You can see this field of darkness right here, but then you go like this, and now it's kind of a lighter area, right, amongst a darker area. So there's this full value transition within these spaces. So you can't just work around like one existing kind of field of value because it's going to be changing. So that in mind, let's try something that I think is going to work on here. It's one of the things that I do quite often on my different surfaces. We're going to be applying the Brilliance White Pigment Ink. Okay, now don't substitute something else besides this one. Just get a pad of this and be done with it. You'll be set for life with some of these really cool effects that you can do with Brilliance ink, because it's a water-based ink and it's designed to dry fast, and it works on these non-porous surfaces where you can spread it around, blend it, and you can even wipe it off if need be. But you can also just spray seal it when it's done because it's not adhering, okay? All right, so let's create kind of just this little field of I was going to say it's like a suspended field of white over this. It really looks like it's floating on the surface because that holographic is such a deep kind of effect on there. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit here for you, but look at that. That white looks like it's really raised, doesn't it? Okay, now this is going to be my my rocks for my Lakeside Cove. Okay, that's just my go-to stamp for a lot of different experiments. It's a fairly bold image, but we do have those rocks in there that are illuminated, right? They're light within dark. Okay, but they're also fairly dark because they're also they have the shaded area to them at their base. All right. Okay, now this is the torn paper towel cloud effect right here. Okay. You can also do mountains out of this type of thing. You'd go with a little bit of a different rip, but doesn't that look like a mountain? And then you can just kind of move it up and then do other mountains in the background. You usually be doing it in a darker tone as opposed to a light one, though, for clouds. Okay. Now, I thought about just stamping the imagery right on there, but I thought, yeah, these clouds really give kind of a nice, kind of a contrasting texture. And since this is a really special piece of foil that I'm working on, I thought, let's go for the cloud. The cloud doesn't take too long to do. So I use my torn paper towel stencil to draw them on there, or I don't know, stamp them on there. And then what I do is I go and I hand apply some tone over the top of them so that they're kind of a little bit more natural looking. They kind of make some glow a touch. Okay. Now, as this white dries, it kind of becomes a little bit more transparent. Okay, so it looks a little lighter when it's wet. Okay, but even as we sit here, it seems to kind of dry out and become lighter. Or, I don't know, not lighter, but darker because it's becoming more translucent. Okay, so I'm going to put some of these in the water as well to make it look like the clouds are reflecting in that water area. Is there something like that? Let's build that one up a little bit more. Something like that. Okay, now when we stamp this right over the top of it, you don't need to measure it out or anything like that. I mean, you want to get this wide enough to where you're hitting it kind of in the middle somewhere, like about like so. But don't kind of, stress over something like that. It's not going to be that, super crucial. All right, so that being said, what I'm going to do, I thought about using the StazOn on here. I might just go with the StazOn just directly on there in another application, but I'm going to use the Brilliance ink. Brilliance ink's the black. Again, it's a little bit thicker, or it's a lot thicker than StazOn because this is a pigment ink. So I just thought I would adhere to this a little bit easier. Or maybe not adhere, sorry, transfer onto there. It's not going to adhere. All right, let's give this a shot and let's take a look and see what it's going to look like. I'll also probably be able to get a little kind of idea of what this would look like if it was stamped directly on here. I didn't know if it would show up or not, because the paper, the cardstock is still, it's fairly dark, in character. So dark against dark, there's not enough contrast to show it. But as that, you're kind of moving the Mirri around, the holographic, it is changing its character completely from what it looks like from one angle to another, depending on what light is hitting it. Okay, now holding this down on here a little bit longer, it's not so much about pressure. Okay, I am pressing into it though, just to make sure that I got it all. But I am stamping this kind of thick black pigment ink into a, fairly thick application of the white, all right? So we want enough of this to transfer over to that side. So if you just kind of let this sit a little bit, it'll start to dry on its own. Not completely, it doesn't, it's not that fast. But even just, I don't know, half a minute or so, I think that's time for it to set up or start setting up in order for that transfer to take place. It's different though. Sometimes, putting it on for a little bit less time might be better. But there you have it right there. I think it's a good idea that we probably stamp that little bit of white in the back. What do you think? It kind of stabilizes it a little bit too, I think. Just in terms of the movement. There's so much movement in here. And if I didn't get that white in there, you'd see all of those textures showing right in the rocks, right? Everyone understand that? It's because those rocks, those rocks wouldn't be light. They would be, whatever color the paper is, okay? Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty interesting, and it holds to the, the nature of the paper. You got to do some dynamic types of applications on these types of surfaces, or I don't know, bold applications, because it's such a bold surface. So. You just need something to stand out against that type of background. All right, so here we have some, going along with that kind of stabilization of the surface, we're going in with some of the Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. You're just getting a little bit on the tip of your brush, okay? And this is small, this is a 1/4 page card. And you're just going to flick a few bristles at a time, and then you'll have a really good amount of control over the amount of paint that's splattered onto the scene. Okay, maybe go for a little bit of variation. Okay, now this is one thing that I really like doing on these types of surfaces, because I feel that these stars that are on here really provide kind of a stable image within these spaces like that. See, as you go like this, so those stars are kind of stationary, so it's like, maybe the northern lights or something like that up in the sky, but then those stars are nice and stable up there, and look at them kind of reflecting in that water area down below. So isn't that pretty cool? All right, now let's anchor this lower portion down. We'll go with this right here. Sometimes the imagery doesn't stamp really well over the splatter painted stars, but it's because those are slightly raised. You know, I know they're like a tiny little dot, you know. So again, let's go with the stays on. And it's just going to be thick, but okay, I might stamp it over some of those little dots, and some of those dots could show right through my brilliance, my thick brilliance ink here, okay? All right, so when you're stamping on these types of surfaces, I don't think I mentioned it, but kind of just stamp down, be fairly decisive. You know, you don't want to skew your image because this paper, again, it's, you know, the surface is not very porous, if at all. I don't know, I'm getting the feeling that this one seems a little bit more porous than certain types of papers. I'm used to working on, you know, papers like this that are super sealed off and glossy. This one's a little bit more satiny, so I don't know. I feel like it's taken the ink a little bit better than, say, you know, a super smooth surface cardstock or foil or whatever, holographic foil. But I don't know. I haven't had any kind of issue whatsoever here, and that's a good thing, you know, with these types of surfaces. Remember, I'll have to spray seal this. I don't think it's going to adhere very well, but it's probably adhering a little bit better than I thought it would. I don't know. You can just tell sometimes. It's like if you know, with some of these foil cardstocks, it's almost like you're kind of stamping on glass, but this one, I don't know. I feel like the inks and everything are transferring really nice and easy. So, all right. So that's pretty cool. I really like that look. What do you think? And those stars up there like that. Can't be easier. Sometimes people look at these scenes that I do on these types of papers and they think, oh my God, I would never be able to do that. We're not doing the papers though. You know what I mean? All I did was I stamped, here's a black image of the, you know, the Lakeside Cove, and here's two impressions of that directly on there. The only thing as far as technique wise that I did was, you know, that cotton ball application of that cloud in the background. Yeah, but everything else is pretty, I don't know, we splatter painted when we were in kindergarten, so, you know, it's not a tough technique right there. You know, it's a, you know, kids do it. Kids splatter the you know, the kitchen floor with their spaghetti when they're eating it too, you know. Little kids, little infants. Same type of thing, practically. All right, so here we have some acrylic paint pens. You know, blue tones right there. Why not use the acrylic paint pen blues here? All right, so I'll just put some little bit of a larger star here and there, kind of cluster them a little bit, making it look a little bit more kind of varied, I guess. That was a fairly dark kind of pastel blue, and here you have a, I don't know, what, 35% blue probably in terms of darkness. I guess it's kind of, it's a little bit pastel too, I guess. If you have like a you know, like a silver glitter blue, that would probably be pretty cool. Or silver up here, I think would look good too. You know, some kind of metallic that would sparkle a little bit. Okay, so here's a darker blue. Sometimes this blue right here is going to stand out light against dark, but sometimes when you turn this card, this one's going to be dark against light, you know, so depending on what angle you're seeing this in. Okay. So that is my experiment number one. It's a pretty conservative experiment, which is kind of interesting that we'd consider anything like this type of paper to be considered conservative, right? But it's certainly a conservative application of media over the top of it and design, stamping. But it's one way to, kind of utilize this type of surface for, whatever, scenic stamping, for intended, purposes. Okay, now see down here, I don't know if I would stamp out, something. I guess you could, you can have some little fishermen or something like that down here. Little subject matter. I mean, if you want something that's going to be really subtle, you could. But I think I would avoid any, imagery that's too small, like a little canoeist or something like that, because it would kind of break up those natural kind of lines like that. And I don't know if you'd be able to read what those little images are down here. So if it kind of breaks up that kind of the natural movement and grace of these kind of lines, these curvy lines down here with a straight small image in there, and you also can't tell what it is very easily, I would just kind of avoid it in something like this and stick with my kind of bolder imagery. Look at that. You can really see the Lakeside Cove at that angle really well, but then you go like this, and it just kind of blends in. So it's part of the fun of this foil, that's for sure. So anyways, I really liked doing this first experiment on there. We'll try another one. I think the kind of the interior kind of pointed circle of trees type of thing. I notice other companies are coming out with those types of images these days. I just saw, I think it was a digital file one or something like that. So I think people like that type of thing. All right. Anyways, thanks for watching.